Welcome to another in a series of what the Allegheny Journal is calling its movers and shakers sets of interviews. And we were thinking about our next subject here about a week ago, and the thought came to mind that one of the best examples of community involvement in the region is our friend Deputy Chris Fisher. And so we called him and said, hey, can you work us into your busy schedule? And he said, well, quite frankly, during the day, it probably can't happen. So here we are sitting on a Thursday night. We're delighted that he could find time in his schedule after hours to come in and speak with us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
And you, Chris, for those who are not familiar with it, you're a deputy, you're a lay preacher, you're a community activist in the nicest sense of the word. Where did Chris Fisher come from? Give us a little bit of background about the person we think we all know.
Well, I grew up in Iron Gate. That's my home. My mother's Rose Nicely Fisher from Iron Gate. And I spent, until my adult life there into my 20s, and then I moved to Clifton Forge. But that's where I grew up. And my mom taught me a lot of things in life about, one, being involved in the community, doing unto others, especially people in need. And my mom always taught me at a young age, when you meet somebody, you look them in the eye, and not only do you give them a handshake, but you give them a firm handshake. And I was brought up in church, and I was blessed. I'm just so blessed to have a mother figure, and she's just a wonderful lady, and she taught a lot of my values to me.
When we cover, and we're proud to do so, but the Journal tries to cover the area of governments and, of course, many other kinds of events. And occasionally, unlike other media outlets, we like to video the beginning of town council meetings and boards of supervisors. And Chris is often there to start out the sessions. And Chris, we can kind of tell you're from Iron Gate from your invocations. I mean, you really do. So how did you get started doing something like that?
As far as the preaching?
Yeah, I mean, this is just from the heart.
Well, it's a neat story how it happened. A friend of mine, Reverend Lewis Dodd, was in the hospital. This was on a Friday evening, and I had called the hospital to check on him. And this was in 2016. And he said, I'm in a dilemma. I need a favor. And I said, do you need me to go to the store for you or something? He said, no, I need you to find a preacher for me at Kaiser Church in Iron Gate, Presbyterian Church, for Sunday. And he said, my backup plan is he's out of town visiting family, and I don't know what to do. So he said, will you call Ronnie Dowd in Iron Gate and work something out? He said, why don't you just do it? And I said, well, Reverend Dodd, I don't know about that. I said, so he said, please. And so as a favor to Reverend Dodd, I called Mr. Dowd, and we chatted for a little bit, and he said, yeah, come on Sunday and give us God's word. And so I did. And after that, I've been blessed.
It just flows, huh?
It just flows. And it's very humbling. And I always tell people I'm not ordained, and one day hope to be. One day hope to be, to get to that goal. But it's a blessing, and it's really neat, the path that God puts us on. I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ. I'm strong in my faith. I pray every day before I go to work, at lunchtime, when I come home, before I go to bed, even before I eat snacks sometimes. I say, hey, thanks for this candy bar, this milk and cookies. And I feel like if I don't do that, my whole day is just backwards. If you don't go to church on Sunday, I've found too that it kind of messes your whole week up. Everything just doesn't fall in place where it does. If you're right with God, He puts everything into place for you.
Well, that's quite a story. And of course, from that point, we probably requested more and more places, or you did more fill-ins, and so this has developed into just not a 1 or 2 time affair. I think we've heard that you preached at Sinking Spring Presbyterian Church and several others in the Highlands.
I have, and you have a son too that does some lay speaking, and he will tell you, Chris will tell you, that it's just something. It's something about it, and just the beauty. I think we take God for granted. I think we take a lot for granted. We live in a beautiful area, and I truly mean that. This whole area is beautiful, beautiful people, and these little churches, and going to them and meeting new folks, and in the journey and realizing we're all in this together. And I'm a firm believer in this too, that God loves everybody. God doesn't point anybody out and say, I don't love you. And God forgives us of our sins. And that's truly what I believe. And I accepted Jesus as my Savior in August of 1992. And a few years ago, when I got back into preaching more, God was telling me, you do a lot of great community things, but could you give me just a few blurps out there in the community? And I ran from it for a while. We all do. I was a Jonah. And I just got into it, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's just been a humbling experience. It's been just so amazing. I started volunteering early on. I was 15 years old, joined the fire department, and got into the rescue squad and did that, and that was really awesome. And then when I was 20, there was 3 seats on the Iron Gate Town Council, and there was only one person on the ballot, and that was the late Bill Clark. God bless Bill Clark, good friend. And there was 2 other seats, so I got a phone call from a friend of mine named Roxanne Smithers Nicely. And she said, I've got an idea. She said, this might sound harebrained. She said, but have you ever thought about running for town council? I said, no, I haven't. I was 20, And she said, well, they have a meeting tonight, and several people thought you might do a good job, and they're a couple seats short. She said, I want to run a write-in campaign. Why don't you run a write-in campaign with me? I said, well, let me come to the meeting first and think about it. And so went to the meeting. After the meeting, I thought, yeah, this is be pretty cool. We serve in the community in another capacity. So I called her back on the phone, and I said, I'll do it under one condition. No bad politics. We don't say anything bad about each other. If you win and I don't, no hard feelings, nothing like that. And so that's how it started. I spent 6 years there on the council, and it was a very humbling job, sometimes a thankless job. You sometimes get into a ring of fire. But all in all, when you do give back to your community, whether it's church or civic groups, being in the Lions Club too here in Clifton Forge, although I don't get to be as active as I would like to be, the things they do for people, and not just the Lions Club, so many groups here, civic groups do so much for this community. It's just unbelievable. And to be a part of that and to see the difference that you make and God makes in people's lives and these people that volunteer, this community is just blessed, and I truly mean that, blessed with a lot of folks who just do so much good for others. And it's just unbelievable.
It's nice to hear somebody say some positive things, And after serving on Iron Gate Town Council, or somewhere close to there, you decided that maybe you were interested in a career in law enforcement?
I decided I was interested in a career in law enforcement when I was 6 years old. Now this is how the story gets kind of squirrely.
Were you one of the cowboys as opposed to the Indians, or you're going to?
We did both.
Bring a little justice.
I played the good guy, the bad guy, but it was something about a law enforcement officer. And my mother was old school, and she didn't believe in calling a police officer a cop, but a cop is actually constable on patrol over in England. That's what it means. But she always said you show a madam or sir or deputy or officer. But anyway, that's really what I wanted to do my whole life. But I had a brother and a sister that had graduated from 4-year colleges with bachelor's degree. And my mom said, well, that's fine if you want to be a police officer, but I want you to go to school first. So I started in business, and it just didn't ever add up. Math has been one of my weaker subjects. So and at the time, Old Dominion University had a program through Dabney where you went to school a couple of days a week over a TV screen and got a 4-year degree in human services, social work, and that really helped my law enforcement career. But while I was there at Dabney, I did some ADJ classes, Administration of Justice classes, and Gary Bowyer was the instructor.
We've seen those listed.
Yeah, and just it was really awesome. And so I got a 4-year degree, and then I worked on the Dabney classes with that, and then I did an internship with the Iron Gate Police Department. Brad Hodge was the chief at the time. I did that almost 2 years, and then I graduated in 2004. I applied for a patrol officer's job here in Clifton, and Chief Barry Balzer hired me. It was about July 1st of 2004, and I stayed here for 2.5 years, and then an opportunity came at the sheriff's office to work in the schools. And I'd always been working with area youth. I'd refereed a lot of basketball, did a little bit of coaching and different things, and I thought I'd give it a try to see what it was like to work in the school. And then after that, I got into the school, became a school resource officer at the middle school, Clifton Middle. did that, and got into the DARE program, and went on from there. Got into crime prevention and community policing, and still do some patrol and different things. So about 18 years of my life has been law enforcement.
We hear your voice all over Allegheny County. I mean, for those people who are used to hearing things over the scanner, I mean, it's a continuous flow of management and or involvement. And I think, is your technical title sergeant now?
Yes, sir.
So it's a long way from patrolman to sergeant. And what you're saying, it's what, a total of like 18 years?
Yes, sir. But I will say this, you learn in every aspect of every position you're in law enforcement. Whether you're a deputy or master deputy or corporal or sergeant or lieutenant or captain or major or chief deputy or sheriff, you learn as you go. And look, I credit where credit's due. I work with a bunch of awesome individuals of all the law enforcement agencies. They're always up to help when we want to have a community event like the bike rodeo or the DARE program.
We're going to get to that.
And you know, it's but you're right. But you go through each stage, and you kind of learn who you are. You know, as the further you go along, and before I knew it, 18 years has passed quickly, very quickly.
You just don't look old enough to have had 18 years, but that's another matter. But we've seen Chris around the community a lot, and we have a son close to Chris's age, so, and we hear his voice. But I think that we didn't really notice the extent of the community involvement until we kind of got back in the media business here in the Allegheny Highlands, having owned a couple of a daily and weekly newspaper, and had a little lapse there as we were running some in a nearby county. And when we came back, one of the coolest events in the Allegheny Highlands, at least in our humble opinion, is this project that law enforcement chiefly has organized, and it's called the Bike Rodeo. And you would think, well, you know, a couple of kids are going to show up this, and you know, relatively minor event, but in truth, it's a major event. In fact, the last couple of years prior to this COVID-19 scourge, we looked up and we would see Chris speaking to the crowd, and we're talking about an effort of raising tens of thousands of dollars, and the kids from all over the region, not just Covington, not just Allegheny County, coming up, getting a free bike, and sometimes as many as 220 or maybe even more. So Chris is one of the movers and shakers of, along with Sheriff Hall and the Covington Police Department. And so Chris, you really kind of taken this to a graduated level. I mean, it was and it was a great concept from the beginning. But now, in addition to many associates, you've really made this a big deal.
Well, and I will say, and I appreciate the kind words, I didn't start it. And I always give credit where credit's due. And you know, Alan Dressler and Daryl Hicks with Covington Police, Barry Rose, Frank Figures, those guys were the forefathers of the bike rodeo. I'm blessed, and I truly mean I'm blessed to carry on a tradition that they started. They put their foundation there, and I remember when Barry Rose retired, he said, please, whatever you do, don't let this go. This means a lot to a lot of people. And it's truly a humbling experience, and we've been blessed. The community just, I just can't get over, though. You know, you were talking about the COVID outbreak and how much it's changed things. This is the first year we haven't had a bike rodeo since 1997, and it's different, you know. And I see all these kids, you know, they get the excitement and the chili running down them when they eat a hot dog at the event, or they're winning the bike, or getting a gift card, or just hanging out, jumping, whatever they do, and playing.
It's remarkable. I mean, it's not just that emotion, it's the volume. What would you say was the total number of people that who showed up for the last bike rodeo? Would you say 400, 500, 600?
Total count.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
I mean, every place was taken in the parking lot, and I mean, it was just.
I'd say the last one we were down a little bit last time, but we've had upwards of over 1,000 people.
Oh, really? That much?
And that's why we moved to Main Street Park, and that's when, you know, I had volunteered with the bike rodeo when I served on the Iron Gate Town Council,
Okay.
And then in 2006, Sheriff Budis Paul had hired me to be a school resource officer, and I kind of started working with Barry. And then when Kevin became sheriff, Mr. Hall got involved with it even more. And so it's just been a neat thing over the years to watch how it's evolved. It's like the fall festival. I mean, this first year we're not going to have a fall festival, but you see that over the years and how the enjoyment that folks get out of these little community events. We do street scene. There's another one, and all that this community gives. I mean, you realize that we don't have the business infrastructure an hour away that Roanoke or Salem does. I mean, they have many more businesses, and a lot of our businesses are small.
But you were raising at one point, was it more than more than $40,000? It's a pretty big number, wasn't it?
It takes about 21,000
21?
to put it on, safely put it on.
Okay.
And each year we're always worried, are we going to get there? But I always say, faith, God takes it. We work together. All the agencies work together. All our men and women and volunteers. That's another thing. It's not just law enforcement. What we've had is upward to 40 or 50, 60 volunteers come out to help us do this. It's just awesome.
Well, I thought we'd switch gears a little bit then. That is truly a remarkable event. And before we leave that subject, Chris, we hope it can return this next year. And the amount of joy, we'll snap up maybe a couple hundred pictures at these events. And it's, as we mentioned, it's not just Covington, Clifton, Iron Gate, it's Hot Springs. Kids are coming over the border from West Virginia. I think even Rockbridge and Craig County. So, Botetourt.
Yeah,
Sure.
and Sheriff Hall and I talked the other day about it, Chief Deputy Bowser, and we are going to have to move forward to plan for it next year. But we keep our fingers crossed. It's a good thing. We like it. And the kids, what it's all about. You make a kid smile and make a difference in a kid's life, mission accomplished.
Well, and speaking of events, I think our interviewee is one of the movers and shakers of the long-time organized, and many feel is the best area Christmas parade. And so, Chris, probably many people want to know what's going to happen with the Iron Gate Christmas Parade. We're used to seeing guys with their shirts off and it's 30 degrees, or he's smiling, or somebody's got a
Packers game. I know Alan Dresser would like that. He was here the other day.
And there's characters. Everybody loves the Iron Gate Christmas Parade because it comes down a street and people are lining, but it's a real close event. Everybody knows everybody. It varies from 65 degrees to 35 degrees, but this is one of the organizers. So, what's going to happen this year? Do you know?
Ironic you ask. I had a phone call yesterday about it. Some of the members of the fire department were asking what we were going to do, and I said at this point we just don't know. We have to play it out and see. But one other thing that's really cool about this area, where else could you come to a small area and have all these Christmas parades? Millboro, Hot Springs, Iron Gate, Clifton Forge, and Covington.
We covered 6 last year. We did Lewisburg.
And then if you go further up the road, Craigsville has one, Glasgow has a parade. So they're all around. Fincastle, Buchanan, Rockbridge, Lexington, Buena Vista, and you go over to West Virginia, and I'm sure Craig County has one. It's just really awesome. I don't know. That was one of the goals that I had when I was on town council in Iron Gate. We hadn't had a Christmas parade. They stopped having the parade. It was from 1967 to 1990. And it was hard to get volunteers, and the participation lacked. And so that was one of the goals. So in 2002, after 2 years of being on the council, we kicked it around and finally got it together. And let me say this, Clifton Forge and Covington, Hot Springs, and Millboro, they all kind of helped us get reestablished. I never coordinated a Christmas parade before. I just thought everybody just shows up, and we learned, don't just let everybody show up and try to find them a spot. You have to be organized with it. But we have great parades here. I try to participate or be a part or go watch all the parades. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I know that all the communities have wonderful Christmas parades.
So there's about 390, I believe, Mayor Unruh told me, about 390 residents in Iron Gate, and the number of entries in the Iron Gate Christmas Parade average about?
We've had as many as 127. I think last year we were down to 68, but it rained.
Yeah.
Remember how we pulled that off? We backed the time up an hour or 2 hours and made it work.
You even have a reviewing stand. I like that.
Yeah.
Right out in front of the tunnel. Anyway, that's a great effort. So, Chris, let's switch gears a little bit here. On the one hand, you're involved in many positive things, and we see you everywhere, and that's a real blessing to see your leadership on that. On the other, you're a county deputy with school resource officer experience. You're seeing some of the downside of a community that has challenges. Are those two things easy to reconcile? How do if you're a police officer, is it a gradual process of training to deal with the less fortunate or the more emotionally challenged?
I was taught a long time ago by some of the forefathers that were in law enforcement that have retired now, and some have gone on to be with God and glory in heaven. But I was taught by a lot of those folks, treat others how you would want to be treated in that situation. In other words, don't be judgmental. Have patience. You can do a lot with this, but you can do a whole lot more with these. And I've always been, and I have a great group of team from the SROs to the guys and ladies I work with every day, the men and women that put their lives on the line, no matter what aspect of law enforcement they're in. Patience, and understand that we're all not going to agree on everything, but we're all in this together. We do have problems here in the Highlands, I know that, but we're not the only locality in the world that has problems. But one thing I've learned is you can count your problems, but are you counting your blessings? And if you count your blessings, it always is more than any negative or any problems. I believe God loves everybody. I truly do. And I'm firm in that. I really believe that. And when you work together and you try to exercise that patience, and sometimes it's hard. You go into some really heated situations. You do. But in the end, if you can try to reconcile differences in a positive way, and you have to understand that everybody experiences different things. You're talking about a need, and you get a call for somebody that's just lost their job, or they're struggling, or they've lost a loved one, or they've been involved in a crash, or their loved one's just killed, or in a car crash, or whatever it is. You have to kind of put that hat on and wear that different role. And you have to have that empathy. And you have to understand, sometimes you can understand because you've walked in someone's shoes. Sometimes you can't, but that doesn't mean you can't show them that you care and that you want a good outcome for them. That's just always been my philosophy. And I know a lot of the folks I work with, they have the same ideas. Let's try to do this in a positive way and realize we're all lucky to have each other. And that goes a long way, especially in the times we're living in now.
Well, let's end on a positive note. We've seen all this community activity and activism, which is just almost the definition of pure good. What's in the future for Chris Fisher?
Just enjoy life, live every day as that it could be your last. Be right with God, and that's how I believe. And I say wherever He directs me to go, I'll go. And we never know, from day to day. But I do believe in little things like sending cards to folks is good, or sending a text message to tell somebody you're thinking about them, or if you see somebody in the store that you hadn't seen for a while. With COVID, you can't really shake hands anymore. So when I preach at church, I always tell people, go like this, and the whole congregation does it. And Tammy will tell you. And they say, what are you doing? I say, we're shaking hands. You have to be creative in times like this. And, we'll get through it. We have to be strong and do the things that we need to do. And, life still goes on, and we still have a job to do, no matter what our jobs are in life. You still have to work and provide for your families and do all those things. So, you just never know. I'm blessed. I've got a lot of awesome friends here, and again, the folks I work with and the people I've met on this journey, it's unbelievable.
One of the, as we're about to close here, uniquely, at least in our experience, 50 years of reporting and 5,000 videos, all this media experience. There's no place like the Iron Gate Town Council. You have a person who is loyal to his religion and his community, gives a wonderful invocation, and we're always honored to film that, and that's Chris. And then the mayor asked the entire group of people attending the meeting, has anybody been forgotten? Should we get a card out to anybody? And there's no place like it. And of course, there's always a suggestion. And then the mayor will turn to Chris and say, hey Chris, did I leave out anybody? And inevitably, something will happen like that. So
I've seen that in so many places.
yeah.
In Covington, walking down the street, and somebody will say, hey, do you know, there's anybody that's sick? Or, hey, I'm praying for you, you pray for me. Clifton Forge, anywhere in this area. I mean, it's just unbelievable that the amount of caring that there really is. And don't get me wrong, we all have differences,
Sure.
but hey, the main thing is that we're blessed to live where we live. This whole area is beautiful. I mean, just look around. It's beautiful.
And Chris, we certainly agree with that, and you're part of it. And we thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely. God bless everybody, and love the whole Allegheny Highlands. You're just awesome, and I appreciate everything, and I know the folks I work with do, and the whole community. Just keep on keeping on, and let's be strong with each other, and let's make the best of what we got, and thank God every day for another opportunity, and we'll be okay. I truly believe that. Thank you for all you do, and thanks for having me.
Good to see you.